This is a short video to cover the first part of our Connecting Themes unit. So what is geography? It is the study of the Earth's surface made up of physical and human elements. And we'll take a look at those. So physical elements are all of those things that are found naturally on Earth. So it can be natural disasters, things like a hurricane. It can be those landforms. It can be climates. Human geography is going to be anything that has to do with people. So population density, cultures, those are all human geography. Speaking of culture, what exactly is culture? There's a dictionary definition of culture there, but really it's all of those things that kind of unite a group of people. Things like language, things like clothing, history, religion, traditions, sports, all of those things that unite people together. Cultural diffusion is when you take one aspect of a culture and you adopt it into another culture. There are a couple of examples there on the board. You can find McDonald's all over the world. You can find Coca-Cola all over the world. Those have been adopted into all of those different cultures. And it doesn't just work from the United States into other cultures. You also have other cultures, things that have been adopted into the United States culture. So things, food is the easiest thing to think of. You can find food from all over the world here in the United States. Cultures can definitely have conflicts. Um, Historical feuds may lead to conflicts between two groups of people, religion, politics, lots of different things. Um, Looking at population, population is just the total number of people living in an area. We talk about two different types of population quite a bit, rural population and urban population. Rural is going to be that countryside. Urban is going to be the city areas. Population distribution describes the way population is spread out, and geographers and demographers look at how people are spread out and then try to figure out the why. Some of the things that can influence population distribution, natural resources, if they have natural resources there in order to build goods, a good climate, whether or not the country has a good economic system, whether they have a good political system, or whether that political system is, forcing them to live in one area or another. The rural versus urban settlement, capital resources, things like transportation, technology, that infrastructure, bridges, roads, and conflicts. You can force a lot of people out of your country if there's, some type of war, some type of conflict. Things that can affect population, let's take a look at these. Migration is just the movement of people from one place to another. Immigration is people when people move into a country. If you see IM, think in. Immigration is when you leave your country and move to another. If you see EM, think exit. And then we have push and pull factors. This definitely affects immigration, both the I immigration and E immigration. So push factors are those things that push people out of an area. And pull factors are things that are going to pull people into an area. So some examples of a push factor might be a lack of jobs. It may be a lack of freedoms. Pull factors, better climate, better, more freedoms. So I use this idea of a cliff. So if you imagine if you're standing, you got a couple of people here standing at this edge of a cliff. If you push somebody off, that's a bad thing. If your friend has fallen off and you help them back up, if you pull them back up, that's a good thing. Population density is the average number of people who live in a square mile, and population density is generally a lie. If you take a look here at the United States here, let's look at New Jersey. New Jersey is over 1,000 people per square mile based on this map of the United States. But when you actually look at New Jersey, when the closer you focus into an area, the more accurate your population density is. So if I'm looking at this map of New Jersey here, I can see, yeah, there are some definitely areas where you do have a very high population density, but there are other areas, you've got these green areas where hardly anybody lives. Um, we also have political boundaries. Political boundaries are created by people, they're invisible, but it does determine how you live. It defines your government, it defines your economic system. Political boundaries can also lead to conflict. You've got this Basque region of Spain, and they're not the same as the rest of the Spanish population. They have a different culture, they have different language, and a lot of times they want to have their own area, so that can definitely lead to some conflicts there. Political boundaries can also change. The Roman Empire no longer exists. The Soviet Union no longer exists. The Mongolian Empire no longer exists. So political boundaries can change over time. What about cooperation? Do countries cooperate with each other? Of course they do. Usually it has to do with money. These two flags down here do have to do with economics. This is ASEAN. On the left here, this is the European Union, and both of those organizations were formed for economic purposes. These two up here are also global organizations. The League of Nations, which is going to become the United Nations, were formed for more political reasons. Why do people settle in certain areas? They're looking for resources, rich soil, land and water, whether you have access to water, whether you have good transportation. Looking at the movement of the Earth, there are two different types of movement of the Earth. You have revolution, that's that track around the sun, 365 days. And you also have rotation, that's it spinning on its axis every 24 hours. Rotation causes day and night, revolution causes seasons. Latitude and longitude. Latitude measures north and south. The lines run east to west. You have the equator as the starting line. This line runs from east to west, but it's measuring north and south. And then you have longitude. You have the prime meridian here. These lines run from north to south, but measure east to west of the prime meridian. A couple of other lines that are important. So you have the equator here, you have the prime meridian going this way. You also have these two tropical lines. You have the Tropic of Cancer in the north, Tropic of Capricorn in the south. This area of the Earth receives pretty much the same amount of sunlight no matter the season. And then we also have the Arctic Circle and the Antarctic Circle here, and those are down there. Using these lines of latitude and longitude, the Earth can be split up into hemispheres. A globe is the truest representation of the Earth. A map is a flat representation, and when you try to take something round and flatten it out, there are some distortions. Here are a couple of map projections, and you can see just by looking at these different maps that things can definitely be distorted when you put it on a flat surface. So if you're looking at this Mercator map, look how big Greenland is. And then when you change it to a Robinson projection, you see that it is actually much smaller. And then we have different types of maps. You have a general purpose map and a special or a thematic purpose map. So here are a couple of different examples. This is a general purpose map. You just have the countries, you have the bodies of water, you have latitude and longitude. These are all thematic or special purpose maps. This one shows volcanoes, here's Earth's biomes, and then this one is population density. So what are the elements on a map? You've got symbols that show different things on a map. You have a scale that shows you distance. You have that key that explains what all of those symbols are. A compass rose, which shows you your directions. Remember, north, east, south, west. A lot of you learned never eat soggy waffles. I learned never eat slimy worms to remember your different cardinal directions. What makes a good map? You have the date that the map was made, the orientation, so that would be that compass rose. You have a grid system, either latitude or longitude or some other type of grid system on there to help you find locations. You should have a title of a map. You should have an author. Um, as far as an author, it's usually going to be a map company and not a single person. You have an index which shows you certain areas of interest. It would give you those grid blocks to find where a specific place was. You have a legend or a key, and that tells you what all of those symbols mean. And then you have the scale that shows you distance. So a good way to remember what makes a good map, you have the word dog tails. Charts and graphs are also used in geography. When you look at a chart or graph, it should be clear. You should have titles and labels. It should be colorful, but not overly busy. And here are just two examples of charts and graphs. And that's it for this first part.